Brands are showing their support for the Black Lives Matter movement on social media, but how much of that support is genuine and how much of it is just hot air? We'll talk about it next on Keep It Social. What's up, everybody? I'm Paris, and this is Keep It Social, the show that brings our timelines to life. I'm here with my co-host Terrence and today's guests to take a look at the stories that caught our attention and yours on social. Hey, Terrence, how's it going?
It's going well. I mean, it's still pandemic mode.
Yes, it is.
We're doing as well as possible. How are you?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. It's pandemic mode, and that just got turned up a whole lot more. But you know, it's an interesting moment. It's a fundamental moment. And with that, there's so many parts of our lives that are really keying into this moment, including the brands that we support and that we consume. And many brands are showing their support for the Black Lives Matter movement on social media. Everyone from Nike to Chubbies, even the Bratz doll collection have been vocal in calling for the end of racism, violence, and police brutality. 4 of the largest social media platforms have also voiced their support for the movement. But some brands are seeing their efforts fall flat with consumers. To help us understand why, we're joined by business and fashion journalist Alexandra Mondalek in New York. Hi, Alexandra.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being with us. And we're also joined by Liz Flora, who's a senior reporter on Beauty and Wellness at Glossy. She also joins us from New York. Hi, Liz.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So tell us a little bit about what we're seeing from brands, who's getting it right and who's not.
I can jump in on this one. So, we started to see probably midway last week up and through the weekend as protests and demonstrations, not only across the country, but across the world, started to draw more attention and, of course, more people. And from there, brands really took the cue of not only social media, but what their customers were saying more broadly, posting everything from the hashtag BLM, Black Lives Matter, to announcing full donations, in some cases, upwards of $500,000, $1 million, and then, pledging to make change internally. So far, some of that has yet to solidify, but I think this time around consumers will really hold brands accountable for what they're telling people they're willing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I've been looking specifically at the beauty industry as a beauty reporter, and for beauty, I first started noticing brands start to post on around Thursday, and then that was a pretty small number. I noticed like Goop was one of the first ones actually, and then it really picked up, after Nike released its ad. So then, through Saturday, you definitely saw, a ton of brands starting to post, and it started definitely with the smaller, more indie labels. And then, the bigger conglomerates kind of held out. So you definitely saw these kind of startup disruptors posting first, supporting explicitly Black Lives Matter and calling out George Floyd.
So it strikes me, I mean, some of these have really resonated well with audiences, and then some of them haven't. And I wonder why that is, and what are we seeing in the approaches that these brands are taking that's working and that isn't?
I think from my perspective, at least, a lot of people are just calling out these brands who historically and previously before this moment have not been supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, have not implemented reforms, systems changes within their own companies to support and elevate Black and Brown experiences, right? So I think of L'Oreal. There's this really famous beauty blogger, Monroe Bordoff, who called out, L'Oreal Paris and said, I was an influencer under your brand, and when I spoke about racism and systematic injustice, you threw me out to the wolves, essentially. And I say that to say, with these brands, it's similar to personal accounts, organizations, employment. People are noticing that this optical allyship, right? Saying this, posting this to be a part of the movement, the wave, and not supporting that with effort or donations or something that's tangible to elevate these experiences, they're calling it out. So yeah, I think if you aren't honest about where you have fallen short prior to this, it's going to end up badly, because social media, people are going to rip you to shreds, essentially.
Yeah, another example of that, as as Liz brought up, Goop made a public announcement that they supported the movement. But then when you take a look at the brands that they carry on their own website, very few of them, if any, are Black-owned businesses. So it just really reeks sort of a hollow marketing effort when they're not walking the walk internally.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, also, it was really striking to me to see the people who had been affected by these companies. I think similar to the example you gave with the influencer, Terrence, but like CBS had put out a statement, NBC had put out a statement, but then there were people who had worked at those companies or who had experiences and were like, yeah, but you don't have a diverse workforce. You don't really have the representation in your management that reflects what you're saying, or, you treated an employee in this kind of way. So I think, what do you think that does to the consumer when you're seeing these brands come out and say these things, but it's maybe not matching up with what they're doing in practice?
Yeah, I think Sephora is a good example of a brand that's been getting called out on social media for workers' rights issues. There was, that really viral article in the New York Times by a Sephora worker who was a woman of color who had been laid off during the pandemic. And Sephora, posted a statement, supporting, this movement, but then people are just accusing them of hypocrisy. They're saying, you can't treat your workers this way. So there's definitely a lot of awareness among consumers. They're not stupid. They're definitely, they're not just going to take a statement at face value. They're definitely expecting action and a genuine response from the brands in terms of their, putting their money where their mouth is.
Right. And I think Chubby's was one, for me at least as a consumer, Chubby's was one of those people who, when they did release a statement, they did it in a thoughtful way, right? Like saying, previously, we have not been there. We're a clothing company, but that doesn't excuse us, right? Like, we haven't been there. We haven't been vocal. We haven't supported Black and brown people the way that we should. But we're starting now, right? We're starting right now. We're going to make X, Y, and Z donations. We're doing this, and this internally. And so I think when you come at it in that manner, instead of just releasing a statement about community and conversations, it goes over better, primarily because when these organizations release these statements saying we're having conversations, we're building community, it comes across as a slap in the face, right? Because Black and brown people have been having these conversations for years, have been talking about this for years, have been bringing this to people's attention for years, right? And so when the end game or the result isn't something that's tangible, like I said before, people can definitely sniff it out, and they just, for me, right? I'm not impressed,
Yeah.
Especially at this point in time.
Absolutely. Well, I will say, I think one brand that impressed a lot of people was Ben & Jerry's. They really came out on point, and this is something that has been consistent with them. And I just want to know if they're going to come out with a flavor that reflects the moment, almost like they did when they did the whole marriage equality thing. But so we'll see. Well, Liz and Alexandra, thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.
Thanks so much. It was also great to be here.
Well, that's it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our social channels, and let us know what you want to see on the show. We'll see you next time. And until then, what should they do, Terrence?
Harris, they already know. Keep it social.
A production of WGBH.